Welcome to the meeting of the Skokie Village Board for Monday, September the 16th, 2024. This evening, we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by our village clerk, Benai Desal.
Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before calling the roll, I would like to ask for a motion to permit Trustee Kuhn to participate remotely. She isn't with us as yet, but she said that once she landed and got to her hotel, she's traveling, she would try and Zoom in. So a motion to permit her to participate remotely would be in order. Trustee Pure-Slovan, seconded by Trustee Klein. Call the roll on the motion, please. Trustee Sutker? Aye. Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kroon will be remote. Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pure-Slovan? Aye. Trustee Klein? Aye. Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes. The meeting will come to order, and the clerk will please call the roll.
Trustee Sutker? Here. Trustee Robinson?
Here.
Trustee Kroon is remote. Trustee Johnson?
Here.
Trustee Pure-Slovan? Here. Trustee Klein? Here. Mayor Van Dusen?
Here, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda for this evening's meeting. A motion is in order. Trustee Johnson, seconded by Trustee Klein. Is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to have removed? Yes.
I want to remove just the second part of the minutes of our last meeting, September 3rd, just because I want to offer a minor amendment.
Okay. Is there anything else? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sutker? Aye. Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kroon is remote. Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pure-Slovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes. Trustee Johnson.
This is for our September 3rd minutes. I just want to suggest a minor amendment. We had kind of a confusing procedural situation at our last meeting. This is in the section of the review of the compensation ordinance. In the meeting, Trustee Pure-Slovan made a motion, Trustee Robinson seconded the motion, but then we ended up not voting on the motion. But regardless, if a motion's made, if a motion receives a second, that has to be recorded in the meeting minutes. So, and currently the minutes just say there was a motion, but not whether there was a second or what happened to the motion. So I just move that we amend our September 3rd minutes to include a complete summary of Trustee Pure-Slovan's motion and Trustee Robinson's second.
A second would be in order. Trustee Pure-Slovan, call the roll on the minutes for September 3rd, 2024, as amended, in addition to the minutes for Monday, August the 19th, as provided in the agenda.
Trustee Sutker? Aye. Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kroon is remote. Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pure-Slovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein? Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation this evening. Sue Hagedorn is with us this evening from Bundle Blessings, and I believe Trustee Tolleson. Trustee Klein, would you do the honors?
My pleasure, sir. Whereas diaper need, the condition of not being able to afford a sufficient supply of clean diapers to keep babies and toddlers clean, dry, and healthy, can adversely affect the health and well-being of children and their families. And whereas national surveys and research studies report that nearly 1 in 2 families struggle with diaper, and 48% of families delay changing a diaper to extend the available supply. And whereas a daily or weekly supply of diapers is generally an eligible requirement, babies and toddlers to participate in child care and qualified early education programs that enable children to thrive and parents to work. And whereas many parents struggle with diaper need, report missing an average of 5 days of work each month due to an insufficient supply of diapers. And whereas without enough diapers, babies and toddlers risk infection, health problems that require medical attention, resulting in medical costs, and parents may be prevented from accessing child care needed to go to work or to school, thereby destabilizing the family's economic prospects and well-being. And whereas the people of Skokie recognize that the diaper need is a public health issue, and addressing diaper need can lead to economic opportunity for the state's families and communities, and improve health for children, thus ensuring all children and families have access to the basic necessities required to thrive and reach their full potential. And whereas Skokie is proud to be home to a trusted community-based organization, including Early Childhood Alliance, Niles Township Food Pantry, and Metropolitan Family Services, that recognize the importance of diapers to ensure health and providing economic stability for families, and thus distribute diapers to families through various channels. And whereas the Village Commission on Family Services, faith groups, local businesses, and legislative offices also have hosted donations and diaper drives to assist the Niles Township Food Pantry. And whereas through their important work of addressing diaper need, Bundle Blessings and all diaper banks play a critical role in supporting families, improving infant health and well-being, and advancing our local and state economic growth. And therefore, George Van Duzen, Mayor of the Village of Skokie, does hereby proclaim this week of September 23rd through September 29th, 2024, as National Diaper Need Awareness Week. And that was read by a person who's only changed one diaper in his whole life.
Well, why don't we,
Oh,
come
and
on.
may I introduce Peggy Tollefson and Sue Hagedorn from Bundle Blessing? You want me? Please. Wait, George?
Wait, I should put this up. Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for recognizing Diaper Need Awareness Week with the proclamation. It highlights the tremendous need that exists, but also brings awareness to what has been referred to as a silent crisis in our community, the lack of adequate supply of clean diapers to keep a baby healthy and dry. Bundle Blessings was created in 2013 in response to the diaper need experienced in low-income families in our community. Last fall, we celebrated our 10th year and 2 millionth diaper distributed. We give out 41,000 diapers a month to 850 children every month through many agencies, a third of which go to Skokie and Niles Township through partner agencies who serve this area. In fact, 10 of our 19 agencies serve families in Skokie. So again, we just want to thank you for the proclamation and recognizing that nearly half of the families in our country with young children suffer from diaper need and helping us change that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and keep up the good work. Next item on the agenda is the promotion of 2 officers to sergeant, and the chairman of the Board of Fire and Police Commissions, Will Evans, will do the honors. And I would like to introduce our police chief, Jesse Barnes, our deputy chief, Denise Franklin, deputy chief, John Oakley, And I believe our Deputy Fire Chief, Nick Eschner, is here with us as well. All yours.
Thank you, Mayor. The Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, we do a lot of work and a lot of interviews, but this is the favorite part of our job, to come here and swear in sergeants, lieutenants, or firefighters, or police officers. So good evening, Mayor Van Dusen, trustees, Police Chief Barnes, and all that are here on this special evening. I would like to especially acknowledge the family and friends of the sergeants that are about to be promoted tonight. This is a proud moment for all of you. I extend my congratulations to you and thank you for supporting your loved one during their journey leading to this moment. Tonight, we will swear in 2 newly appointed police sergeants. We must never forget the men and women who serve as first responders. They deserve our admiration. They are often the first on the scene of a tragedy and provide security and comfort to those suffering. We invest our first responders with authority to promote and keep the peace. They have earned our support, respect, and gratitude, and it is my great honor to be part of this very special ceremony. So, Matthew Dixon, you can follow here. So raise your right hand and repeat after me.
I, Matthew Dickinson,
Do solemnly swear that I uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Illinois,
the state of Illinois,
the ordinances of the village of Skokie,
the ordinances of the village of Skokie,
and the rules and the regulations of the police department
and the rules and the regulations of the police department
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police sergeant
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police sergeant
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Sergeant, would you introduce your family and friends who have joined you this evening?
Of course, my wife Caitlin is right here. Been married for 12 years now. My son Caleb is about to turn 7, and my youngest Cohen, my sister-in-law Courtney, and my friend and pastor Jordan.
Welcome.
Jason Dewey. So raise your right hand and repeat after me. State your name.
I, Jason Dewey,
Do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
do solemnly swear that I will uphold the Constitution of the United States of America,
the state of Illinois,
state of Illinois,
the ordinances of the village of Skokie,
the ordinance of the village of Skokie,
the rules and regulations of the police department,
the rules and regulations of the police department,
and the Skokie Board of Fire and Police Commissioners,
and the Skokie Board of Police and Fire Commissioners.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police sergeant
I will faithfully discharge the duties of police sergeant
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability. Mr. Owens.
Sergeant Dewey, would you introduce your family and friends?
Yes, absolutely. My brother-in-law Paul, lovely wife Christy, my youngest son Owen, his lovely girlfriend Julia, my oldest son Aiden, and my in-laws Dan and Irene.
Welcome. Congratulations to both of you. The promotions are richly deserved, and we're very proud of you, as we are of the entire department. I needn't tell you that this community supports the police and fire departments. Every couple of years, we do a survey to evaluate our operations. And you might be interested to learn 90% of approval rating of our police and fire departments. The national organizations have declared the police department a flagship, which is just about the highest status you can possibly have from the professional organizations. And part of the reason is men like the two of you, Denise, and everybody in our department. As the chairman said, you're the ones who are at the first line of danger, and you're the ones who protect us every day. So thank you for everything that you do day in and day out, and congratulations again. And I didn't see any surprised looks on on the faces of your family and friends, so I think they also know how much you deserve the promotions. Congratulations. And let's take a short break so we can all gather and congratulate our two new sergeants.
Michael, close the door. The door. So-
He thought Ralph was still out there.
Oh. Yeah. Might point out for the record, trustee Kuhn has joined us via Zoom. So, welcome. Next item on the agenda is report of our village manager, John Lockerbie.
Thank you, Mayor Van Duzen and trustees, and good evening, everyone. Item A is regarding Crawford Avenue. This is a Cook County road that goes through our community, and it's specifically the Crawford Avenue Phase 2 design, engineering services, and execution of intergovernmental agreement with Cook County. The village has been working with Cook County to reconstruct Crawford Avenue between Oakton Street and Gulf Road. As stated, this is a county roadway, but the village's involvement is strategic and is expediting the project. Preliminary engineering is now complete, and the design engineering is ready to commence. The village will be leading the design phase, which requires entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the county for reimbursement. Staff is recommending the use of Christopher B. Burke Engineering Limited to perform the design engineering services. The village will ultimately only be responsible for up to $152,963 to cover design of local improvements. This is the design for improvements that are beyond the scope of the county. So tonight, there's 2 items before the board for their consideration. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request mayor and board approval of both of these separate items. We'll take A1 first. To award a contract to Christopher B. Burke Engineering in the amount not to exceed $1,902,110 for design engineering services.
A motion on A1, the contract proposed for Christopher B. Burke Engineering is in order. Trustee Sucker, seconded by trustee Robinson. Are there any comments or questions?
Hi. Is this the phase where you're going to be working out where the bike lanes are?
So the preliminary design, I'm going to ask the Director of Engineering, Russ Reetfield, to come to the podium and give more details, but this is the second phase, and so the first phase is complete, which was preliminary work, but I'll have Russ get into the specifics of what's to come during phase 2.
Good evening. Yeah, no, John, you're correct. So the preliminary engineering determined that the preferred alternative was a single travel lane in each direction with an on-street bike lane and adjacent on-street parking, working out from the median travel lane, bike lane, parking lane.
Is this negotiable or is this like set in stone?
There was a public process to get us to this point, and so through the public process, this was the primary design that was put forward.
What is the speed limit going to be on Crawford?
It's going to remain 35.
That will be a very uncomfortable speed for a lot of cyclists, like to have the cars going that fast. Like Maine doesn't feel unsafe, but that will feel unsafe, just so you know.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the feedback, and it is very challenging to design one type of solution for bicyclists. There's so many different type of cyclists these days. So there's the type that want to commute to work or to recreation or wherever they're going, and so they choose their path accordingly. There are others of us that are more of a recreation or leisure bicyclists, and we may or may not choose to use a path such as this. We may choose to use a side street to bicycle on. And so the village's bike plan tries to incorporate as many different alternatives as we can to accommodate as many different bicyclists as we can. But it's absolutely the truth. There's different bicyclists that prefer different types of opportunities to get from point A to point B.
I'm just curious with a number of bicycle deaths recently, if protected bike lanes were explored and what happened with that. And I understand that there was a public process, but these deaths are pretty fresh. I mean, is there a way to go back and consider doing protected bike lanes?
The protected bike lane, and again, Russ, you're the expert, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Protected bike lanes are something that the village has looked at continuously and considered. There's a number of factors that come into play when a design of a roadway is selected. One of that is the width. And so the width of a street is a very important variable in determining what the best bicycle solution is. And so as you can see from this street profile, there's an accommodation for parked cars, there's an accommodation for bicycling, and there's the accommodation for the vehicles. There's also the accommodation of the median and the mature trees. So one of the design principles that is included here is preserving as many trees as possible. And so as the median gets narrower, the likelihood that the trees will not survive increases. And so all of these different variables have been taken into consideration. Even the location of the bike path has been considered. Is there a better, or through the alternatives, what is the best location? And it was determined that the best location in this situation is in between the parked cars and the vehicle lane of traffic. But Russ, I'll turn it over to you to add anything that you want to add.
No, that was pretty comprehensive. The only thing that I would add is that the other alternative that was considered and ultimately was voted down had an off-street path adjacent to it, but it would have been complicated to navigate all those driveways. And so ultimately this was the desired alternative.
Back to your width of the bike lane though, John, is there a reason, and maybe Lauren will come and smack, I'm not a professional cyclist or even a leisurely cyclist. I have a bicycle that's been in storage for 3 years. But the width wouldn't change if the bike lane was on the other side of the parked car. And it would put them much farther from the moving traffic. So it wouldn't have to narrow the median. Is there a reason that can't work? Is there a reason that's bad? I got this.
Our experience and our conversations with bicyclists is that this is actually preferred. When drivers are more in tune with there being a bike lane over their shoulder as they open the door, whereas passengers are not.
Right.
And so then there's a higher chance of a collision with the door and the
It was
bicyclist.
a genuine question, and I was thinking doors. Thank you.
Well, and one other variable that should be mentioned is there is an escape hatch. When you're a bicyclist in this scenario and a car door opens, hopefully there's not a car to the left, but you have an opportunity to move to the left. If the bicycle lane is against the curb, there is no escape hatch. And so these are the types of things that have really been thought about over and over again, trying to come up with the safest treatment for all of the vehicles and pedestrians that need to use the roadway.
Yes, sir.
I think the plan is beautiful. I think your idea is great. I waited a long time for Crawford to look like this. In the future it will, that is. We needed this a long time. We did half the road, if you all recall, engineer department, because of the money, whatever the case may be, but you did it. You did the best you could for the time. This is a beautiful idea. When we're talking about bikes, we're looking at the people that are wanting to ride their bikes. Well, look at it. It's beautiful. You couldn't ask for anything but. What we did was we took those 2 lanes that we speed across all the way to Gulf Road, and we cut it down to 1. That made it safe. So I think it's a great idea. I like the way the easement in the middle of the island looks, and you're right about the trees. They won't last if we don't give them some space. Thank you.
Trustee Robinson.
Thank you. I had a quick question. First, Ms. Poker, I thought you were going to say you had a stationary bike, which, Secondly, there is sometimes people speed down Crawford. Was there ever any thoughts of speed bumps or anything to help kind of mitigate that issue?
Yes, traffic calming devices was part of the consideration for the design, and I think, Russ, you can elaborate.
Yeah, the best part of this alternative, in my opinion, is that it clearly delineates all the lane use for all the different users. So right now, you'll haphazardly come upon a parked car. That won't be the case any longer. And then we'll be able to incorporate, through that, we'll have traffic calming, which immediately is better and safer for pedestrians and all different users. But then we'll also be able to incorporate bump outs at the end of the parking lanes to shorten the distance of crossing the street.
And just to elaborate on the very technical term bump out, that's where a sidewalk goes a little bit further into the street than the normal curb stops. And so it extends the sidewalk further, so the actual amount of asphalt that a pedestrian is traversing is smaller, narrower.
Yeah, and I might point out, it's taken us 10 years to be able to get to this point. Several hearings, engineering phases, and so on. So I want to congratulate John and the staff, and good job. Lauren?
I don't want it to sound like I don't appreciate this. I've been really looking forward to having bike lanes on Crawford. I mean, every time I take Keeler or one of those little side streets that's not well maintained, it's not a solution for people who want to commute. And every time I take a bike and not a car, that's one less car on the road, reducing air pollution, reducing CO2 emissions, and also reducing congestion, right? Like making it better for everybody. So, but the thing is, like, speed is what kills the cyclists. So is there any way we could talk about, like, going from maybe 35 to 30?
So I know when the process started, the county, so as a reminder, this is a county roadway, county jurisdiction. And I know at the beginning of the process, they laid out that their intent was to keep the speed limit the same. That's not to say that we can't revisit with them during phase 2, but it is their roadway.
Just a quick question. I'm a regular cyclist in Skokie, although I absolutely will never ride down Crawford as it currently looks. Have you considered putting pylons between the bike lane and the traffic lane, such as they do in both Evanston and in Chicago along Clark Street, where they're just plastic poles that come up to alert the cars that they're not supposed to swerve into the bike lane? And that seems, at least along Clark Street in Chicago, to have been very helpful in keeping the cyclists safer.
Again, I think that's something that we could look at in phase 2, but we would definitely we would have to have a conversation with the county about cost and maintenance of those.
And let me add just one thing, sir. If there is a section of Clark Street or in Evanston that has the pylons where there is parking, if you would leave your name and phone number and where those sections of the street are, that would be helpful to us.
In Rogers Park along Clark Street in Chicago, technically, they have pylons between the bike lane and the traffic lane.
Is there a parking lane in addition to that?
Yes, there
Okay,
is.
great, thank you.
So it's traffic
Okay.
lane, cycling lanes separated by these, I mean, they're little plastic, I mean, if a car wanted to clobber it, it could, but they're just to alert the drivers, I think, that they're not supposed to go into the.
I'm familiar with the technology. I just haven't seen it in this scenario. Thank you.
No, this is in Chicago, not Evanston, I think.
Trustee Sucker.
I think what's coming up is there are some safety issues with, I'm a biker and a walker, and I think maybe like an educational piece about biking and the bike lanes that we have in Skokie and how to be careful, and for drivers and for the cyclists and walkers at some points too. It's like, I have seen people hit by the door. I do understand the speed issue, so maybe an educational piece about that would be helpful.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sucker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein? Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes.
Item 2A2 regarding this matter, approval of the prepared resolution authorizing the execution of the intergovernmental agreement with Cook County for the Crawford Avenue reconstruction project.
A motion is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? If not, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sudker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein? Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes.
Item B is regarding the construction work associated with undergrounding utilities along the transit-oriented corridor of Skokie Boulevard. There are multiple Skokie Boulevard properties slated for new construction redevelopment between the blocks of 8047 and 8201 Skokie Boulevard. The current location of the overhead utilities prevent achieving this transit-oriented vision of redeveloping these properties and therefore necessitate undergrounding the electric and other utilities such as telephone and cable. The project will be completed in two geographic parts. The first portion will be along the alley south of Keeney Street along the 8047 Skokie Boulevard property. The second, a future phase, the second portion of the undergrounding will continue from Keeney Street up to the north line of the redevelopment property, which is located at the northeast corner of Cleveland Street and Skokie Boulevard. In total, both portions of this project will include undergrounding of 1,100 feet of utilities, the removal of 14 utility poles, and 35 new service connections for both residential and commercial properties. The combined investment of the private development projects that are planned exceed 100 million in new development in the approximately 3 to 4 block section. Staff recommends an execution, we're recommending the execution of an agreement with an expenditure of $210,246.26 to ComEd from the Downtown Science and Technology TIF, the tax increment financing, to support this next step in the multi-phase project of undergrounding these utilities. I concur with staff's recommendation and respectfully request Mayor and Board approve.
Motion is in order. Trustee Johnson, seconded by Trustee Sucker. Are there any comments or questions? Being none, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sudker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein? Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes.
Items C, D, E, F, and G were part of tonight's consent agenda and approved as part of that. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Next item is report of our Corporation Counsel, Michael Lorge.
Thank you, Mayor, trustees. Good evening, everyone. Item A is an ordinance which was on the consent agenda for second reading at the beginning of tonight's meeting and was approved at that time. Item B is an ordinance for second reading and adoption tonight. The first reading was on September 3rd, 2024. This ordinance sets the compensation for the mayor, board of trustees, and village clerk to be elected at the October 1, 2025 general election. By state law, changes in salaries for elected officials are set 6 months prior to the elected officials taking office. The compensation for the elected officials for the next term will begin in fiscal year 2026 and remain for the rest of the respective terms. The ordinances concern salaries or stipends for the mayor, trustees serving at large, trustees serving in districts, and the clerk, and includes at this time a cost of living increase for each year tied to the consumer price index consistent with other village staff and capped at no more than 3% per year. Mayor, I would ask board action on this tonight.
Okay, a motion is in order. We need a motion. Trustee Robinson, seconded by Trustee Pierce Lovan. Comments, questions? Trustee Klein.
Yeah, we talked about the max of the CPI tapping out at 3%. But historically, we have given what we consider COLA raises, and they have not been tied to the CPI. We have done 2%, we have done 2.5%. Are we going with what we would give our other employees, or are we going with the max, the CPI that is tapped out at 3?
So in consulting with our village manager, we picked up the exact language that is used for the employees throughout the village, and it is technically tied to the CPI. It's just that's what is the basis of the recommendation that's brought to the board during the budget process.
So to
John,
oversimplify, what we give, if the amount that was agreed upon for the employees is the same, will be the same number?
It isn't stated that way explicitly, but yes, that is, what's written here would track with that. John, you may want to add to it.
The intent of the ordinance before you is to have an automatic set compensation or stipend for the elected officials because that's necessary, 6 months in advance of people taking office. And so tying it to a future decision defeats that purpose. And so the way the ordinance is written is it's a very objective, this is what the stipend will be for that 4 years. So it's similar, but it's not precise
I
of
like
what
that.
the employees will.
I like precise.
And let me just add, to toy or think about language that simply says to be consistent with or the same as whatever salary increases given to employees throughout the village might be inconsistent with the idea that we're supposed to be setting the salaries 6 months before the new trustees and mayor and clerk take office. So we feel this bridges both. It tracks exactly with what would be used for the employees throughout the village, but also makes it a certainty by saying it's the CPI. I think we're achieving what you're looking for.
Thank you.
And it's not to exceed.
And then we add the not to exceed, correct.
Trustee Johnson.
I just want to, I said this at the last meeting, but my personal preference is that we keep the compensations flat and maintain what they were last term, or this term, and the term before. Before the meeting, our legal department sent us a really helpful compensation survey that compares, I think, 14 other suburbs in the Cook County area. It shows that our trustee stipend is higher than these other comparisons, that in terms of the mayor's salary, it's higher than all but one, and in terms of the clerk's salary, it's higher than all but two. And there are some communities where elected officials receive nothing. It's just purely voluntary. So I think since our current compensations are already a little above average for elected officials in municipal Cook County governments, they're even higher than our neighbor Evanston in terms of for the mayor and the clerk. My preference would be that we maintain them as they are for the coming term.
Trustee Pure-Slovan.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to also thank Corporate Counsel's Office for sending a compensation comparisons from the other villages. I do very well with understanding, as Mr. Lockerbie would tell you. I generally ask for those kind of, that kind of information because I don't like to make a decision based on, without educable knowledge. And based on what I see, I don't support a raise in the compensation of the mayor or the village clerk or the board of trustees because I believe that our compensation is above average of what other municipalities and villages are doing surrounding us. So I think that we should continue with what we've already established.
Trustee Robinson.
Yeah, I was just going to thank Corp Counsel for the comprehensive chart. I did know there were a couple of closer communities not here, Evanston being one, and I know we always like to compare with Evanston.
We were looking for that as well, but when you go into their website, everything is reported in the aggregate, and we couldn't find through our other sources, that being municipal associations, that data. We were also looking for Oak Park, where we often like to compare ourselves, and likewise, that is such, and some of the folks in Oak Park who we would often ask information of have gone on to other employment. So I didn't have that resource, and I think, John, that's really what you had as well.
Yes, there was brought to my attention late this afternoon that Evanston has recently made a recommendation or approved increases for their positions, and I think that that would make the trustee compensation, the alderman compensation in Evanston, several $1,000s higher than the current Skokie stipend for trustees. But I don't know the specifics for the clerk or the mayor, but.
I just wanted, I also appreciated this. I just wonder, you said you got it from the Northwest Municipal Council, so we're pretty sure that these numbers are good numbers as of the last, 2022.
Exactly, as of 2022, and that's why in my cover note, I was trying to be explicit that we think they're reliable because of the source, but these are not numbers that we specifically
They checked.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And again, it's interesting, as in most municipalities, if you go to the website, the information is generally not broken out as to each position.
Oh, it's just the total dollar. Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
I did find, earlier today, I found some information on the Evanston website. My understanding is, and it may be increasing, but my understanding is that currently each council member receives a salary of $15,990, that the mayor receives an annual salary of $25,317, and that the clerk receives an annual salary of $64,120.
What was the first number?
$15,990 per year per council member.
Thank you.
So they would be a city that's above our trustees.
It'd be higher than
Right,
what
than
the
us.
our
Yes.
trustees receive.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor and an ordinance, proposed ordinance. Call the roll
Could I-
on the ordinance.
Since we've had some, kind of just following what trustee Pierce-Lovin said, could I just make a motion to substitute the second draft of this ordinance with the first draft that we reviewed at the last meeting, which kept the compensations flat?
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
Could you clarify this?
Please.
Sorry,
I-
I'm
It would eliminate, the motion, if I understand it correctly, would eliminate the cost of living increase.
Mayor, I'm sorry, Mayor, for clarification purposes, if we vote down the ordinance, doesn't that
No,
automatic?
no, if you vote for the amendment,
For the amendment, that's.
then we would vote on the ordinance, the proposed ordinance as amended, if the
Okay.
motion prevails.
No.
Not that, that's not my question. Sorry.
Which
I'm sorry. My question is, ignoring his motion for a moment, not the trustee, if we went for the ordinance as it is stated and voted against the ordinance, doesn't it leave our salary, the salaries base the same?
No, what you would be doing is failing in a timely manner to do anything for any salary of any kind for future trustees, mayor, et cetera. So what trustee Johnson is trying to do is to ask, by way of an amendment, that we remove the one that's in front of you, and that then you would vote on instead the one that was before you at the last meeting, which had no cost of living for any position.
Thank you for the clarification.
Is that consistent?
Thank you.
Yeah, that was better said than I did. Thank you.
And then it would be for all the positions?
Yeah.
Then you would be proceeding without any COLA, CPI, any change of salary at all for the next 4 years in all positions.
So the motion, the motion is on the amendment. Trustee Johnson. Repeat your motion.
I'm moving that we proceed without any cost of living adjustments and keep the salaries flat for the coming term, as was presented in the first draft of this ordinance at our last meeting.
Your vote would first be on the amendment, and then, should that pass, you'd vote on the amended ordinance, which is the original ordinance.
There we go.
Can I just have one more clarifying? I just remember from the first one, did it mention, I remember it had mayor and clerk, and then there was conversation about trustee, but did it clearly state trustees in there too? In the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, trustee Sucker. Didn't I remove trustees? You were correct.
That was the first vote we took today.
That was last,
No, when we voted on, Johnson said we hadn't voted, and then we voted on it.
right, so we added that into the
We
minutes.
added that.
Correct. Oh,
I just, I
We
earlier I had
have an
motioned.
amendment on the floor. Yeah, wait a minute. We have trustee Johnson's motion. Is there a second to trustee Johnson's motion? Trustee Kuhn seconds the motion. Okay, so we are voting on the proposed amendment, which is to eliminate cost of living, the cost of living provision in the ordinance.
For all positions.
For all positions. Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sucker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes. Now, we have the ordinance as amended on the floor, and we have a motion and a second.
Correct.
Any comments or questions on the ordinance minus the COLA?
That's at the way.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sucker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
I'll vote aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the ordinance passes.
Thank you, Mayor. That would conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are two items under our Plan Commission.
Sorry. Before we get
Go
that,
ahead.
under new business, I have 2 items if possible. So first, 2 items. First, I want to pass out a memo that I wrote concerning an agenda item request I made last month concerning the possibility of permitting and regulating backyard chickens in Skokie. The Board of Health had a really interesting discussion about this last week. It sounds like our Sustainability Commission is going to weigh in. But in the meantime, I want to share this memo, which provides some context for my agenda item request and outlines how I hope we can continue to remove barriers to local food production here in Skokie. And second, I want to pass out a memo I wrote concerning a new agenda item request, and this concerns accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. This is an issue that, at least from my perspective, seems really ripe for our consideration. Last year, as part of an affordable housing study, staff and the Plan Commission recommended that we update our zoning code to allow ADUs, which are smaller apartments within an existing home or part of a detached structure. And more recently, the revised housing chapter of our comprehensive plan highlights the many benefits of ADUs. So I am requesting an agenda item under new business sometime in the next 3 months, by the end of the year, about whether the board is ready to move forward with permitting and regulating ADUs in Skokie. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. That's all for me.
Give us until the end of January.
That's
Because
totally fine.
I expect that I want to get the new subcommittee going, and I would expect this to be on their agenda.
That sounds great.
Johanna?
Good evening. Case 2024-17P is a zoning chapter amendment. The Plan Commission and staff recommend that the village permit outdoor dining in all of its commercial and mixed-use districts, and not just TX, CX, B3, B4, and H1, but also currently it is allowed as a special use in NX, B1, B2, B6, and M1. This text amendment would bring all of our commercial and mixed-use zoning districts into the same regulatory environment to allow standard outdoor dining regulations that are limited between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. between April 1 and October 31st, and other standards that apply. Any deviations would still go before the Zoning Board of Appeals.
A motion on the recommendation through Plan Commission Case 2024-17P regarding outdoor dining regulations would be in order. Trustee Robinson, seconded by Trustee Klein. Are there any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is really exciting. I will support anything that helps businesses expand their business, and I do know that during the summer and warm weather, people will seek out places of business that allow outdoor dining. I myself do. So anything that we can do to encourage more use of our businesses in Skokie, I think is an excellent, excellent idea. Thank you.
I also think this is a great idea. I actually had a question. Why is there a time limit? Why not just let it happen all year long?
So typically in this region, we put the month time limit on because snow comes, and some of those outdoor dining areas may be in areas where we need to remove snow and ice from pedestrian areas. While we have an interesting climate that sometimes affords a warm January day where people want to eat out, it's not always conducive to a week later when there's several inches of ice or snow on the sidewalk. So we generally say no. We don't. If somebody does happen to put a table and chair out on a nice November day, we generally do not come down and give a ticket. But if somebody wants to store their furniture there all year long through the winter, that's something we can't really allow. It doesn't create for a pedestrian environment that's safe.
So that climate change is what I had in mind when I asked that question. And so if it turns out that, March is like it was last year, I mean, is there gonna be some language in the code that the businesses know, like, hey, if there's a 2-week stretch of March where it's 70 degrees, you can put your tables back out?
No, we just stick with the code, and people can do what they want. If it's a problem, we go and address it. We're trying not to be too punitive here. We just want to be flexible and work with people.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Sudker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein?
Aye.
Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes.
All right, second and last case of the night, 2024-22P, special use permit for 9410A Skokie Boulevard. At its September 5th, 2024 meeting, the Plan Commission provided a positive recommendation by a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays for Scout Veterinary Care to locate at 9410A Skokie Boulevard for a veterinary services business. Scout Veterinary Care Illinois PC intends to operate veterinary care clinic with 6 exam rooms, a room for x-ray examinations, a shared office space, a doctor's office, and a larger treatment room with a pharmacy. The petitioner will not operate any overnight boarding services and will not be performing any advanced surgeries on site. They reported to the Plan Commission that the Scout services only warrant patients to be at the location from 15 to 90 minutes. Imagine urgent care for your pet, for your dog or cat.
A motion on Plan Commission Case 2024-22P, special use permit 9410A Skokie Boulevard is in order. Trustee Klein, seconded by Pierce-Lovan. Are there any comments or questions? Being none, call the roll, please.
Trustee Sudker?
Aye.
Trustee Robinson?
Aye.
Trustee Kuhn?
Aye.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Pierce-Lovan?
Aye.
Trustee Klein? Mayor Van Dusen?
Aye, the motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the report.
Thank you. The concluding item this evening is public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board?
Okay, they'll probably prefer that they end on you anyway. I'm gonna make this comment for a couple of reasons, and it is regarding the OMA decision that I got back. But not so much, like, I have all this stuff to point out, Mr. Mayor, how you called me a liar to the public access counselor, which wasn't nice, and I wasn't lying. And to prove that, but I'm not gonna sit up here and litigate a case. Every elected official did get my letter back to the public access counselor. Unsurprisingly, one trustee responded and apologized, and herein lies the issue. I've been watching meetings from home. I've seen somebody get up here and say, maybe these OMA complaints are wrong, maybe you're wrong, maybe this is wrong. Maybe it's not the board who's wrong. The board is not always wrong. The board is not always right. The mayor's response at that meeting was, we have the right to defend ourselves. If there is a plain as day accident that happens, it is okay to say we screwed up, we will do better. Instead, there were letters back and forth, and I want to point out that I only filed this OMA violation or request for review because the night of the meeting, despite your allegations, Mr. Mayor, there was somebody screaming in the audience who said, what just happened? John Lockerbie walked up to try and figure out what just happened. John Lockerbie apologized. John Lockerbie asked the gentleman, you might remember him, he plays a wicked game when he comes up here, he's been here a few times.
Mr. Sprout.
I FOIA'd for the paper that he handed to John Lockerbie at the end of that meeting because you adjourned early, and the paper exists. So you to write back to, my point is that when there's a simple mistake, back up, I then sent John Lockerbie an email and said, it seems the agenda was out of order. I was more curious why the agenda didn't follow the ordinance, and said this also could have added to the confusion. I didn't need an answer on the meeting. He already apologized. It was clear it was a mistake. And I get back a letter that says the meeting was properly adjourned. And my head kind of exploded. I started to write a draft letter back, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to argue. It was plainly a violation. But now we have, and now we have an OMA decision that says that, despite you saying you watched the meeting and it was abundantly clear and all the fancy words, and people can't even say sorry. So if a simple mistake happens, and you can't say, we made a simple mistake, it's very hard to believe that there's any accountability. But what happened was, on August 16th, I was at a plan commission meeting.
Is there any other business before the commission? There is none. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Pardon me? No, I don't take final comments.
It's on your agenda. That's an OMA violation too. I have a PhD
What?
with them now.
We've already taken final comments.
No, you didn't. You have on the agenda public comments not related to the agenda item. It's right on your agenda.
Well, I'll listen to it, but it's not going to be recorded.
And by the way, it was recorded. And at the end was recorded. This is after the commenter.
This meeting is adjourned. Who put that in as final comments?
So if you weren't able to hear that, you can hear it easier on the YouTube. Paul Luke turns to Tyler Kobianski and says, who put that in as final comments? Look into that. I then FOIA'd the OMA certificates because I was sure that he must not have had OMA training. He did. The certificate is there from 2012. Can we do something to make sure our commissions know that in a public meeting, the public has a right to address that body, including the Plan Commission? Because the answer wasn't to find who put that in there. It's always been in there. It has belonged in there, and the public has the right to address this board and that Plan Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and board members. we had an issue about street cleaning in our area. Well, we resolved that issue. We have signs now that says, would you please move your automobiles so we can clean our streets? That does work. I notified everybody before it happened on the block to let them know that we have a new sign coming up and it's gonna say, we want you to move your car. That is the secret for my area. Our streets are clean. I'm very happy with that. And my next question now is to the engineer department. We have these two schools, Middleton School and a Jewish school, Crown. And they do speed quite a lot up and down those roads when they leave and when they come to school. I have a suggestion, I don't know if it can work or not in our area, and it's speed bump for our 2 blocks from Main Street to Cleveland covers. Both of these grammar schools it'll cover. Now, the engineer department has to look into it very carefully to see if it can work for us, because we have engine department, the fire department, engine 17, they're right down the street there. And I tried to talk to the chief today, what his opinion regarding speed bumps when the engines go over those things. Now, Evanston's been doing speed bumps for a long time and it's been working. On the residential areas, these people do slow down because they don't want to go sliding over those bumps. Now, they also can make a smaller speed bump for areas like for the fire department, so they don't have to have that engine jumping up in the air too much. But this is something I'd just like to pass on to you, to maybe look down in the future, to look into it, in the areas of the grammar schools there, just in those areas as of what I'm referring to. And at that time, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. Mayor. I got a question about the garbage can. Okay, last year I just bought the townhome on Crane, you know, the townhome. Used to be they empty garbage twice a week, now they empty once a week. It's okay. Can city provide, first of all, can they provide each unit get their own garbage can put in their unit? Because I see in the area now, all messy, the wreck run all over around, and my tenant keep complaining to me. I said, what can I do? I've been doing my part. I keep my part clean and I try to block everything. I mean, I got a picture can prove for you, you know. The garbage all over. It look like, you know, some kind of like, excuse my language, like the animal house. You know, the area, you know, if the city, you know, village of Skokie could get their own, in their own unit. On the day when the garbage truck, you know, coming to move, they pull it out. I mean, that way make the city, at least for the environment, it's good, no wreck around.
Sir, if you would leave your name and number with our deputy village clerk, and I'll give you a call. The Public Works Department commonly deploys only one toter for more than one unit when the real estate is a little bit slim. And so let's work through your issue, and we can, if there's enough space, we'll get a toter for each townhome. No problem at all. Thank you.
I talked to them last week. They say, oh, they got to clean up. I said, it's not the point for cleaning up. It's the point we want to keep the area, rid of the Skokie, you know, keep it clean.
And we
because
appreciate.
people keep dumping it all over.
No, we appreciate your concern. We have the same goals, and so I'll work with you.
I mean, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to address the board?
If there are no comments, I will address the board from the public podium.
Are we really gonna do this again?
Just until until the board takes action. All right, good evening, Mayor and trustees. For the 20th meeting in a row, I am speaking in protest of the board's political hiring involving attorneys in Skokie's legal department. And I'm asking that you take action to finally reform this really integral department in our village government. I think either of these policy solutions would be excellent, but I'm also open to alternatives. Tonight, I want to address what I think is a really clear example of how the village board is not receiving adequate legal advice and services from our in-house attorneys. It was mentioned earlier, our OMA issues. During my tenure as a village trustee, I have witnessed really dozens of open meetings violations by the board and by village commissions, but I have never heard a single attorney in Skokie's legal department acknowledge a single one of these violations. Instead, I have seen firsthand how elected officials can misappropriate attorneys to justify, to downplay, and to even cover up OMA violations. As was mentioned earlier, this problem resurfaced last week when the Illinois Attorney General's office released their 4th determination against the Skokie Village Board for OMA violations. The first 3 determinations concerned the board's OMA violations during private closed sessions, in which the board has been known to unlawfully discuss public policy issues or unlawfully take final action and vote on items in private. The AG's 4th determination against the board, which was released last week, concerns a public OMA violation. They found that the board violated OMA on December 18th by accidentally skipping the public comment portion of a meeting. This would not have been a very long investigation if the village had simply acknowledged this really honest mistake. But because elected officials and appointed attorneys disputed this violation and lied about it during the review, the AG's office was forced to issue another official determination against the board. In every one of the AG's investigations of the board's OMA violations, elected officials and appointed attorneys have denied wrongdoing, often with overt mistruths, and then have disputed the AG's determinations when the board has been found at fault. This is not how the village board and legal department are supposed to function together. The board-appointed corporation councils are the chief legal advisors to the mayor, to the trustees, to all village commissions and departments. They are supposed to advise public officials to always obey the law. They are not supposed to enable public officials to break the law and avoid accountability. Mayor and trustees, I ask you again to please reform Skokie's legal department for the sake of the village board and also for the sake of our entire village government. Thank you.
First of all, the village board in the closed session dispute with the Attorney General followed the previous Attorney General's specific guidelines. It was a question of how you interpret state law. Attorney General Lisa Madigan had given us guidance for 20-some years, and we followed that guidance, as did half of the municipalities in the state of Illinois. So it is not as though somebody purposefully violated the law. It's a difference in interpretation. And on the most recent one, it's not the village board. If there's somebody at fault, it's me, not the village board. So when you talk about it, as Ms. Polka did, direct it toward me. It was an inadvertent error, if it was an error. I think if you make a mistake once every 25 years, okay, you made a mistake. I did not believe, and I still aren't so sure that I made a mistake that evening, but if I did, I certainly apologize, and it was inadvertent. If anything that I've been criticized for under public comment, it's that I haven't been strict enough in the 3-minute rule. It certainly has not been that I have avoided public comment. If, as a matter of fact, what some people say is, well, why don't you engage when somebody addresses the village board? And The one time I tried to, I was then told, no, you're supposed to keep quiet. That's what this time is for the citizenry. So no matter what you do, you're going to certainly be wrong occasionally. But once again, it's on me. It's not on the village board, and I think it's important. And in the other case, it simply was, we followed the guidelines as specified by Attorney General Madigan. The new Attorney General has taken a different interpretation. We've had discussions with the Attorney General's office on the subject, and the municipalities in the state have come to an agreement with the Attorney General. So it was a lesson learned for everybody. We certainly were not alone in that. So is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? If not, Trustee Sucker,
I move we adjourn.
we are adjourned.